Assab Port is a major seaport located in the southern Red Sea region of Eritrea, a point of geopolitical gravity near the border with Djibouti and Ethiopia. Section 1. A point on the map. The strategic location of Assab. Assab Port is located on the Red Sea coast, key geographical feature in southern Eritrea. This location places it in a region of immense global importance at the crossroads of national interests and the flow of international trade. The port is positioned very close to the border with Djibouti, a nation whose own port facilities are a dominant regional hub. This proximity creates a dynamic of potential competition and strategic redundancy. It is also situated near the landlocked nation of Ethiopia. Ethiopia, a nation of over 120 million people whose economy has historically depended on reliable coastal access. For decades, Assab was its primary, indispensable gateway to the world. Assab's position is not merely regional, it sits directly adjacent to one of the world's most critical maritime highways, a channel funneling a significant percentage of global trade between Europe and Asia. This proximity to major international shipping lanes is a fundamental aspect of its enduring relevance. The port is one of Eritrea's two primary deepwater facilities, the other being Massawa. A deepwater port is defined by more than just its depth. It requires extensive infrastructure, specialized cranes, and vast container yards to service the largest modern vessels, from massive container ships to oil supertankers. This capability distinguishes it from smaller harbors that can only serve fishing boats or local trading vessels. Assab was specifically engineered to handle immense volumes of cargo. It was envisioned as a primary commercial gateway for the Horn of Africa, a promise that has waxed and waned with the region's shifting politics. Its strategic placement is further amplified by its nearness to the Bab el-Mandeb Strait. This narrow waterway is a critical choke point where global maritime traffic is funneled, granting influence over both commerce and security. The geography surrounding Assab is defined by the arid coastal plains of the Danakil Depression. Despite the harsh landscape, the port's coastal position provides a direct outlet to the warm waters of the Red Sea. This body of water carries a substantial portion of the world's seaborne commerce, connecting the Mediterranean Sea via the Suez Canal with the Indian Ocean. For any ship making this journey, passing near the Eritrean coast is unavoidable. This simple fact of geography underpins Assab's strategic value, making it an ideal site for logistical support, from refueling fleets to enabling naval monitoring. Section 2. The Golden Era. Assab as Ethiopia's lifeline. Before Eritrea's independence in 1993, Assab was integral to Ethiopia's economy. During federation and later annexation, Assab was developed and expanded to serve Ethiopia's hinterland. As a landlocked country, Ethiopia had no direct sea access. Assab became Ethiopia's primary commercial gateway. It handled most imports and exports and linked Ethiopia to the world more than docks, a full logistical ecosystem. An oil refinery was constructed at Assab to process crude imports. It supplied fuel for Ethiopia's economy. Transportation industry road networks linked Assab to Addis Ababa and major centers. Trucks moved constantly along these routes, coffee, imported machinery, consumer goods, critical food aid. For decades, Assab and Ethiopia's fortunes were intertwined. This was the zenith of Assab's operations: cranes loading and unloading cargo, warehouses storing goods, thousands employed in dock work, port transport vehicles, logistics and related services. The town of Assab grew around the port. It received major investment and attention. The port's capacity handled diverse cargo, versatile and indispensable. Assab was Ethiopia's lifeline to global markets. The infrastructure was substantial. Section 3. The Turning Tide. Conflict and Commercial Decline. For decades, Assab's identity was defined by its role as Ethiopia's primary maritime gateway. But this fundamental purpose and its bustling commercial life changed dramatically in the late 1990s. The outbreak of the Eritrean-Ethiopian War, which lasted from 1998 to 2000, shattered the deeply intertwined economic relationship between the two nations. What was once a symbiotic partnership was now a bitter rivalry. The conflict was brutal, creating deep-seated political tensions and a bitter mistrust that would persist for decades, long after the fighting officially ended. As a direct consequence of the war, the border between Eritrea and Ethiopia was closed and all economic ties were severed. For Assab, this development was catastrophic. Its primary customer, Ethiopia, was suddenly and completely cut off. The trucks that had once lined the roads to Addis Ababa stopped running. The constant flow of goods that had sustained the port and its community for decades ceased almost overnight, plunging the once thriving corridor into an eerie silence. The lifeblood of the city was severed at its source. In response to losing access to Assab and Massawa, Ethiopia was forced to make a rapid and decisive pivot to secure a new route to the sea. It was a matter of national survival. The nation turned to its southern neighbor Djibouti and began redirecting virtually all of its maritime trade through the port of Djibouti, a politically stable and reliable alternative. This move was a monumental logistical undertaking but deemed essential for Ethiopia's economic security. To solidify this new economic artery, significant investments were made in road infrastructure and later a modern rail line to connect it efficiently to the Ethiopian heartland. This strategic shift effectively rerouted the entire trade corridor of the Horn of Africa, redrawing the economic map of the region and leaving Assab isolated and without its core purpose. The impact on Assab was immediate and profound. The once bustling port fell into a state of quiet underuse. The volume of commercial shipping calling at Assab plummeted. Ships carrying Ethiopian cargo no longer arrived, and the deep-water berths sat empty. The oil refinery, which had been built to serve Ethiopian demand, lost its main client and scaled back its operations significantly, becoming a shadow of its former self. Even as its commercial wharves fell silent, Assab port did not fade into obscurity. Instead, its value proposition began to shift from economic to strategic. On the Red Sea, near a critical global choke point, it became attractive for military and security purposes. Commercial lines bypassed Assab, but foreign governments focused on regional stability, counter-terrorism, maritime security. Its deepwater harbor and existing infrastructure, though underused, offered a ready-made platform for naval operations, military operations. This became most visible in the mid-2010s satellite imagery, and reports showed the UAE built a significant military installation at Assab. The UAE was part of the Saudi-led coalition involved in the conflict in Yemen just across the Red Sea. Assab's proximity to Yemen made it a logistical hub and a staging ground for UAE operations. The base reportedly had an upgraded airfield, fighter jets and transport planes, new naval docking facilities and barracks for troops that marked a pivot from a commercial gateway. The enduring importance of Assab port is fundamentally tied to its proximity to the Bab el-Mandeb Strait. This narrow waterway, whose name means Gate of Tears in Arabic, is one of the world's most critical maritime choke points. It connects the Red Sea to the Gulf of Aden to the Indian Ocean. At its narrowest point, the strait is about 18 miles wide, forcing huge global shipping into a tight, monitorable channel. Any ship transiting between Asia and Europe via the Suez Canal, a route carrying an estimated 12% of global trade, must pass here. That makes the security and stability of Bab el-Mandeb an international concern. A port near such a choke point gains huge strategic value. Assab sits just north of the strait, offering a vantage point to observe, support, or potentially disrupt maritime traffic. For global navies, a friendly port like Assab is an invaluable logistical stop. It can be used for refueling ships, making minor repairs, or rotating crews on long deployments. In a region with scarce secure port access, Assab is a strategic foothold. That's why nations like the United States, China, France, and Japan maintain bases in nearby Djibouti. Despite its prolonged period of commercial underuse, the core infrastructure of Assab port remains largely intact. The heavy-duty facilities built during its peak years as Ethiopia's primary trade gateway have weathered the decades of relative quiet, representing a significant, if aging, capital asset. The port was designed with substantial capacity. Its multiple deepwater berths are the most fundamental and costly part of any port, engineered to handle a diverse fleet, from general cargo ships and container carriers to the large tankers for the refinery. This means Assab retains the foundational potential to once again handle large volumes of international trade. Beyond the quayside, the complex includes extensive landside infrastructure, vast warehouses, open yards for container stacking, and administrative buildings. The basic skeleton of a major commercial hub is still there, waiting for a new purpose or a revival of its old one. While this aging infrastructure requires significant investment in modernization and upgrades to meet current international standards, the cost of refurbishment is far less than building a new port from scratch. The existing roads connecting to the hinterland, even if needing repair, also add to its latent potential. Ultimately, Assab's value is cemented by its geography. Its strategic position on the Red Sea near the critical Bab el-Mandeb Strait gives it an enduring relevance. Over the decades, its role has pivoted from a bustling commercial gateway to a more secluded strategic military asset. A true revival, however, hinges on more than just new hardware. It requires renewed regional cooperation and stable economic partnerships, particularly with its historic hinterland, Ethiopia, to re-establish the vital economic corridors that once made it thrive. Without that symbiotic relationship, the port remains an engine without a vehicle. Assab now stands at a crossroads, a powerful symbol of both past prosperity and present-day geopolitical complexities. Its fate will be a barometer for the entire Horn of Africa, a story of potential waiting to be unlocked.